Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 2023 Oregon High School football season. We are very excited for the upcoming season, and we're looking forward to renewing our Clips of the Week. My name is Tony Fox from the Portland Football Officials Association. This is the third year in a row that we have provided these Clips of the Week. We're looking forward to doing that throughout the season, and we appreciate all the help and support that we get along the way. With the season upcoming this week, we thought it'd be a good opportunity to review some rules and mechanics changes, some points of emphasis, and a couple rule changes from years past that we thought would be good to review again. So with that said, let's look at some slides and videos as we prepare to kick off the season in just a couple of days. So one minor rule change this year was that players now on the same team can wear different solid colored towels. They do have to meet the dimension requirements as you see here on the screen for the rules, but players can wear different colored towels. There's been a minor tweak to the intentional grounding exception, and in 2023, if a player who throws the ball away was not the original player who received the snap, that will be intentional grounding. So as we can see here on this play, quarterback A1 receives the snap. They have pitched the ball back to A2, who runs outside the free blocking zone and throws the ball beyond the line of scrimmage. So those meet the definition of being outside the free blocking zone and throwing the ball past the line of scrimmage. But since A2 did not originally receive the snap, this will be a foul. Similarly, if A2 were to have pitched the ball back to A1, say in a flea flicker play, and A1 subsequently ran outside the free blocking zone and threw the ball away past the line of scrimmage, that would also be a penalty for intentional grounding. So in other words, the only player who can legally throw the ball away is a player who received the snap, went outside the free blocking zone, and threw the ball past the line of scrimmage.
We wanted to go through a reminder of a rule that was implemented last year regarding the options for an offended team with the game clock when there is a penalty with less than 2 minutes to go, either in the second quarter or in the fourth quarter. As a reminder, the offended team has the option to have the game clock start on the ready or on the snap, depending on the situation and what's going to benefit them. So on this page, we have a scenario where it's fourth quarter. We have less than a minute to go in the game. It's 3rd and 10 for the offense from their own 40-yard line, and they complete a pass for 8 yards, short of the line of gain by 2 yards. During the play, A4 is called for offensive holding. So what options does the defensive coach have? Well, for much of this game, they're likely to accept this penalty and march it back 10 yards to create 3rd and 20, particularly because it's at midfield. However, again, it's the fourth quarter, they're trailing, and there's less than a minute to go, so they're going to want the ball back. They can choose to decline the penalty to make it 4th and 2, but because this pass was caught and the runner was down in bounds, normally the game clock would start on the ready for play. However, with less than 2 minutes to go in the second quarter or fourth quarter, the offended team can choose to have the clock start on the snap, which is obviously what the defensive coach is going to want to do here because they want to preserve time and get the ball back. It's important as a crew to make sure that we practice patience and clear communication, both amongst the crew and with the coach, so the coach can make an informed and educated decision. There is no need to rush this penalty enforcement.
Another clock reminder, and this is regarding the play clock, when there is a foul by the defense. In this example here, we'll have encroachment. The play clock will be set to 40 seconds since this is a foul by the defense. Most of the time when we are doing any sort of administration from an official's point of view, we'd reset the play clock to 25, but this is an instance in which we would do it to 40 seconds. Another rule change for this year is that guardian caps and then the helmet on the right are allowed this year. Specific to guardian caps, there is the potential that a guardian cap could come off during the course of action. That will not be treated as a helmet that does so. So action will continue. Now, should a player's guardian cap be pulled off without any grasp of the face mask, that would not be considered a face mask penalty. So if simply a player were to grab the top and accidentally pull off the guardian cap, that will not be a face mask penalty. There's a lot of information on this page, but we're going to look at some video here in a second to help us understand the change in how we are going to enforce penalties, specifically interested in penalties that occur by either the offense or the defense behind the line of scrimmage. In short, except for a few exceptions, when there is a penalty by the offense or defense behind the line of scrimmage, those penalties will now be enforced from the previous spot rather than the spot of the foul. Let's take a look at two clips from last year, one that includes a penalty by the offense behind the line of scrimmage and one by the defense. So the first clip we're going to look at here is a foul by the offense behind the line of scrimmage. So we see here that it is 2nd and 10 from the 33. The quarterback's going to drop back to pass, and we're going to see that there's going to be a flag for offensive holding behind the line of scrimmage at the 41-yard line. Now, the quarterback is going to scramble outside, and they're going to throw a pass that is ruled incomplete. Let's watch this again. And again, just a reminder, line of scrimmage is at 33, and we're going to see the penalty at the 41. Now, in years past, we would have administered the penalty from the 41, taken the ball back to the 49 on the opposite side of midfield. This would have resulted in a very extensive penalty against the offense. So this year, this penalty will be administered from the previous spot, going from the 33 to the 43, and it will be 2nd down and 20. Now let's look at a foul by the defense behind the line of scrimmage. So it appears here we've got 2nd and short from the 43-yard line. We're going to have a handoff with a subsequent handoff, and the running back is going to be tackled by the face mask at around the 49-yard line. That's their forward progress, and we see the flag come out there. So in previous years, we would have administered the penalty from there. So from the 49, let's say, down to the 34 after the face mask. Still would have resulted in a 1st down in this case, but from 5 or 6 yards in the offensive backfield. So again, this year, we will administer this from the previous spot, the 43, down to the 28, and it'll be a 1st down. A reminder that last year, Oregon placed special emphasis and definition on defenseless receivers, and the National Federation followed suit this year. And it further defines an example of a defensive player could either be a receiver or a defender, and they are forcefully contacted by an opponent that is not incidental contact as a result of playing the ball, that's not initiated with open hands, or is not an attempt to tackle by wrapping their arms around the receiver. In other words, a wrap-up tackle. Again, this is a new rule at the national level, but continuation of what we did last year. So let's look at a clip from last year that should have been called for unnecessary roughness and a hit against a defenseless receiver, but was not. So this is a clip from last year, and we want to pay attention to the receiver running up the middle. Back judge is in excellent position, but does not throw a flag. Let's take a look at that again. Again, the back judge is in excellent position here, but the defender does not make a play on the ball. So this is not incidental contact as a result of making a play for the ball. They do not initiate contact with open hands, and this is not an attempt to wrap up the offensive player. So the back judge is in great position here, but the defensive player simply throws a shoulder into the chest. We should have a penalty for unnecessary roughness and a hit against a defensive player. We should have a flag by the back judge here, but we don't. We also have our wing in position, and this crew is utilizing an umpire. We can see here that all three officials are looking at this. So this is an opportunity where we can have a crew saving moment. When we see a play like this needs to be called. So let's talk about some points of emphasis for the upcoming high school football season. And we have three main points of emphasis: uniform rules, helping the runner, and good communication between coaches and game officials. So with the first game coming up, let's make sure we all understand what the uniform rules are. And these can be found under Rule 1.5. We're going to point out a couple of specific ones that we see a lot. The first is the use of eye black or eye shade. The player on the right is legal. They have single strokes underneath their eyes. There's some smudging and smearing as a result of sweating, and that's fine. The players on the left, though, none of those are legal. And we're going to discuss here in a second what our course of action and procedure will be this year. Just a reminder, these must be single solid strokes, cannot include numbers, logos, or any other symbols with eye shade. We also see a lot of issues with knee pads not covering the knees. Now, there's a difference, of course, between a player who is tackled and perhaps their knee pad comes up during the course of action. They'll simply be asked to cover their knees. But if players enter the game without their knees covered, that's where we begin to have issues in conforming with the rules. So this year, when we have uniform issues, we're going to follow these procedures. The first violation, we're going to send the player out for a minimum of one play, and the crew is going to notate the time, the player number, and we're going to advise the head coach. If that same player comes back in a second time, we're going to send them out again for at least a play. Once again, we're going to note the time and the player number, and that team will be assessed a delay of game penalty. If that same player has a third or subsequent violation, we're again going to send the player out, notating the time and the player number. We'll notify the head coach, and the head coach will be assessed an unsportsmanlike conduct foul. There are several other potential uniform points of emphasis. We're not going to go through all of them, but a couple that we see that I do want to bring up. Hoodies are illegal no matter how they are worn, so players should not be wearing hoodies at all, even if the hood is under the helmet. Visors must be clear without the presence of any tint. Sweatbands or elastic bands cannot be worn anywhere other than the wrist. Elastic bands not at all, sweatbands not up on the biceps or on calves, etc. Play cards must be worn on the wrist or arm. Again, you could pause these to look at these in detail. We'll follow the same procedure as I discussed before when we have issues like this. Now, a couple Oregon exceptions. If a player is ever to be found wearing illegal cleats, they're going to be disqualified from the game for a flagrant unsportsmanlike conduct foul, and the head coach has issued an unsportsmanlike conduct foul as well. And should a player be found to be wearing audio or video equipment, there is no warning. The player and the head coach will both be immediately disqualified for individual flagrant unsportsmanlike conduct fouls. Both will be enforced, resulting in a 30-yard potential penalty. A couple other points of emphasis this year. One would be helping the runner. Just a reminder that pushing the pile is legal, but direct contact and pushing, pulling, or lifting of the runner is not. In this example, we can see the player on offense with his hands directly on his teammate pushing the runner. That will be a 5-yard penalty for helping the runner. Last year, Oregon adopted the one voice rule. In pregame meetings, we will ask the head coach who their one voice is. That'll either be themselves or their one designee. It is that coach that can address the official and ask questions. If there's any initial violation, that will be penalized to the offending non-player and a warning given to the head coach. Any subsequent violations will result in an unsportsmanlike penalty on the non-player and the coach, with only one 15-yard penalty being enforced. So let's look at a couple mechanic changes for the upcoming season. The Oregon Mechanics Committee made changes to the mechanics manual as a result of last year's mechanics experiments, and with the result of the center judge position being introduced into Oregon. Crews and associations this year will be able to use either the center judge or the umpire position. For wings, your mechanics will not change, but there were two significant changes to the mechanics. The first involves crews using the center judge. On scrimmage kicks, the center judge will not switch positions and they'll remain in their standard position. They are primary on roughing the snapper unless the kicker is left-footed, in which case the referee and the center judge will switch responsibilities. As a reminder, the back judge will always shade to the wide side of the field and communicate to the crew. The wing opposite the back judge will release once the snap is handled. This is also true on scoring kicks in terms of the center judge. They will stay in the offensive backfield and be primary on roughing the snapper unless the kicker is left-footed. The other significant change is with the red zone and when the ball is snapped between the 19 and the 11. As we always do, we'll ask the back judge to start 20 yards from the line of scrimmage. And yes, this means they will be in the middle of the end zone when the play starts, unlike years past in which we've asked them to go to the end line. The back judge will need to read the play, and if it's a run or a short pass, we will ask the back judge to work toward the goal line, being cognizant and aware of other players, likely going to the wide side of the field or away from the action in an effort to get to the goal line before the runner and to be able to help wings with ruling on whether there was a score. This will be different for us. And again, we encourage you to work towards the wide side of the field or away from the ball. Wings, if the back judge is on the goal line, make sure to make good eye contact with them before helping signal on whether or not the ball broke the plane on a score, because they'll be in position and you may be trailing the play. And again, just further encouragement to be aware of your surroundings. Let's look at some plays that will highlight these mechanics changes. So let's look at a couple of plays where the back judge may start in the middle of the end zone. Now, this is a play from last year when we did not have that mechanic, but we can see here that the line of scrimmage is the 14. So we would ask the back judge to start 6 yards deep into the end zone. What we're going to see on this play is the back judge does make an attempt to get to the goal line, as it was a mechanic that this crew was trying during the season. So the back judge does a good job here of recognizing that the quarterback is scrambling. And you can see here where the back judge starts to make a run towards the goal line. Now, the wing official on the right side of your screen is in position based on a mechanic that we tried last year, but we are not using this year. So the wings would not be in that position this year as they are holding the line of scrimmage and would be trailing this play. So the back judge does a good job of getting to the goal line to be able to help on whether or not that runner were to possibly cross the goal line. Now, back judges, once you get to that goal line, try to get set and not move toward the action more than necessary. There's a lot of reasons for that, but make sure you're out of harm's way. But once you get to that goal line, get set so that you are in proper position without having to try to officiate while on the move. Here's another example of where the snap is from the 19. The back judge is starting 1 yard deep, exactly like we would ask them to do this year. The back judge will read the play and they will adjust as necessary. So unlike the previous play where we had a run, we're going to see where the back judge gets threatened here. They're going to have to retreat. They read the pass and they're in good position to rule this interception in the back of the end zone. So again, they're going to read and react. But once again, we'd ask the back judge, try to get set, get your feet under you so you're not making the call while moving if possible. But back judge is in excellent position here to rule this interception and subsequent touchback. Now the same game here, we have a snap from the 10. So in this case, we have the back judge only a couple yards deep into the end zone. In 2023, this is where we would ask you to start on the end line. And then this is just an example of a scrimmage kick. We have the center judge in the position in the offensive backfield. In this case, they're going to have responsibility for the snapper if the kicker is right-footed, and if the kicker is left-footed, they'd have responsibility for the kicker, and the referee would be responsible for the snapper. So make sure to communicate as a center judge and a referee who has which responsibility. During our pre-games, we can ask the coaches which foot the kicker uses.
Thank you everyone for watching this week's Clips of the Week. As always, all clips and commentary have been vetted through the PFOA Rules and Mechanics Committee alongside Oregon State Rules Interpreter Kevin Hatfield. If you have a question about a ruling, you can email Kevin, and if you have a clip that you'd like to share, please send it to the PFOA at the email address on your screen. You can either email the clip directly or send us game information. We will see you next week.